Welcome to our online information session for the Humanities, hosted by Professor Jonathan Sadowsky and Professor Jim Sheeler. I'm Michael Mason, Assistant Dean for First-Year Students in the Office of Undergraduate Studies, and I'll be collecting your questions via email this evening to be answered live during our session. If you have a question for our host, please send it to summerreghelp@case.edu with the subject line Info Session. You can send your questions at any time during our broadcast. Now to your hosts, Professor Sadowsky and Professor Sheeler.
Hi, I'm Professor Sadowsky.
I'm Jim Sheeler.
So if you are contemplating studying, majoring, minoring in the humanities at Case Western, obviously we think you're on a good track. And I thought maybe I'd just open things up by telling you a little bit about some of the advantages of studying the humanities here. One is that generally you'll have very small class sizes, and a lot of available close mentoring attention. Another reason is the courses are almost always going to be available to you. That is, you'll almost never get closed out of a class or prevented from taking a class. And we also, although we have graduate programs, unlike many private universities, we have small graduate programs, which means we are able to give a lot of attention to our undergraduate students, and we do. So this is actually, I'd say, something that's true about the university in general. There's a lot of attention to the undergraduates, and that's something you can look forward to. I'm sure you know about University Circle and the advantages that provides. The Cleveland Museum of Art, for example, the symphony, etc. And we can talk more about that and how you might be able to integrate that into whatever you're doing. And finally, another advantage is the possibility that many students follow of double majoring. That is, maybe majoring in a humanities subject as well as a science or engineering subject, or even music or whatever. And the university makes that very easy, and it's very common. I would also want to stress one other thing, which is that if you're pre-medical, you can major in or minor in the humanities. That's another possibility that I think too few students follow because they think they need to be science majors. In fact, there are certain advantages provided you take the courses that you need for your MCATs. I think that it's a really good bet to major in something other than the natural sciences. Needless to say, if chemistry is really your passion, by all means, do that. So that's all I wanted to say by way of introduction. I think Jim has a few introductory remarks too, and then we'll be taking your questions.
Great. Yeah, I'm starting my fourth year here. So I've just finished my fourth year here. So in a way, I was 4 years ago in the same spot that a lot of you were in. I actually, was moving my boxes onto campus the same time as a lot of the first year students. So I have kind of a different perspective looking back over those 4 years. I can really kind of tell you sort of what it's been like, and it's really been pretty amazing ever since I walked into our building in the English department. We have a big, it's called Guilford House. It looks like a kind of this big plantation type house it's a former women's dorm, and it's really cozy, which actually is kind of how I would define this campus in a lot of different ways. The humanities at Case, you'll hear a lot of people talking about the sciences and how great of a science school it is. And the humanities in many ways are sort of one of the hidden secrets of this campus. You walk into a house like Guilford House, and there are all of these sort of hidden gems and secret treasures of wisdom, knowledge from all over the place. I come from a journalism background. I was a newspaper reporter for 20 years. And then I taught for a couple of years in Colorado before coming here. And ever since I've come here, I've felt welcome. And that's something that I hear from a lot of the humanities students across the board, whether it's English, history, anthropology. We can go across the campus. And I think because we do kind of have this secret of being, having these hidden talents in the faculty and students here in the humanities, that the students really get together, they know each other. As Professor Sadowsky was saying, the classes are small, so you really have a community of students that you really get to know and care about, and a lot of times you'll be in the same classes with them, with the same 10 students or 15 students. And at the same time, like for me, I came from a primarily journalism school where it was all journalism. But here I can go across the hall and strike up a conversation with the poetry professor or the professor specializing in Chaucer or the film professor. There's so many diverse interests in the faculty that you can also really just kind of chase whatever you're interested in as a freshman. And that's what I would suggest that you do, is just go down the lists of any classes that you think you might have some interest in. And by the time you're a senior, I guarantee you that it will fit in. It's not like you take a class and it's going to be a wasted class. If you're interested in it, I would highly recommend you take it, even if it's something that you think you've already taken. If you've taken a film class in high school or you've read Beowulf, the professors here, the way they teach those media, those films or those books, it's completely different than you've been taught in high school. Not to take anything away from your high school teachers, but it's just another level just of challenging your mind. It challenges my mind when I sit in those classes. So that's what I would highly recommend doing, is just look around campus, find places that you feel comfortable, because even like I was a little quite nervous 4 years ago, and found that I definitely found my spot here, and I'm sure you will too.
So I think with that, we're ready for your questions.
Okay, thanks for those introductory remarks, and we do have some questions that have started to come in. So first question is from Jeremy, and Jeremy wanted to know, when he said he looked at some of the schedule recommendations in the guide, and there are a lot of, open choices to make. And how would you suggest making choices about courses like general education courses, or even courses within specific majors that I might be interested in?
Well, I'd start out by saying choice is a good thing. First of all, I think, and this really echoes something Jim was saying, but I think that first of all, look at what's really attractive to you. Look at what excites you. To the extent that you can, try to take courses when you're filling an elective or you're doing a general education requirement. Try to take a course that really looks exciting to you, without, especially because another advantage at Case Western is that a lot of the classes don't have prerequisites in the humanities, which means that you can just take the course that you want that looks exciting on the books, even if it's 200 level, often even if it's a 300 level course. I have a 300 level course that routinely attracts freshmen, and they always do very well in it. The other thing I would say is, go to the classes. Really use the drop add period. You can register for the classes in advance so you can make sure that you have what you want. But if you're going into a class and it's not working for you in the first week, find something else, or go to multiple classes in the first week. And I think that one of the most important things about what you're going to get out of a class is going to be the rapport that you feel with the professor. And some professors are going to be great faculty members for certain students and not as good for others, and you'll have a sense of what works for you.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Just as I said earlier, you really can't go wrong with picking classes that you're interested in. One way to just kind of look immediately, any class that says introduction to it is usually a really safe class for first years. In English, we'll look for introduction to creative writing, introduction to journalism, introduction to poetry, or film, and all of those courses, they're all 200 level courses, but we as well have 300 level courses that are great for freshmen, and it's great to have that mix in the classes. I would also suggest, if you have any questions at all, feel free to email the professor and ask if their syllabus is available, or syllabus from the year before that they could email to you. One of the great things about having smaller class sizes. I mean, the vast majority of our classes have fewer than 20 students in them. Is that we can have this direct communication with students, and we love it. I mean, in fact, I think all the professors really enjoy getting emails from excited students or calls, and we're happy to answer those questions. That's what we're here for.
Okay, thank you. And we have another question. Part of it, I think you already answered. It was a question about taking 200 or 300 level courses as a first-year student. But then there was a second part to the question that you might be able to add some perspective on. And the second part of the question was, are the courses very intensive with reading and writing? And what can I do if I'm having trouble with a reading assignment or if I have trouble writing a paper?
We have all the courses, have a level of reading and writing. I mean, obviously, the English courses, a lot of ours will say writing intensive on the course description. And actually, that reminds me real quick as well. Like some of the departments, if you go to the actual department website, which I would highly recommend, you can look at not only find out a little bit of information about the professor teaching the course, but sometimes, as on the English department website, we have much longer descriptions of what the course involves, what books you'll be reading, how many pages you're usually required to write during the class. Also, through the English department, there's a writing center where you can actually go and get writing help, and that's for any course. It's in Guilford, but they offer writing assistance to any student across the campus, and many students take advantage of the writing resource center. It's a huge advantage to that. But once again, just feel free to talk to the instructor and say, what are the requirements looking like? How many papers are we going to be writing, and how many pages they're going to be, and almost all the professors can tell you that. But for the most part, you'll be writing and reading a lot more than any of your high school classes. I mean, this is a research university. The classes are tougher by design. It's a great school, and it's going to be a challenge. But that's part of the great part about it.
I would add a couple of things. First of all, it's important to remember that not all 200 level and 300 level courses are going to be open to you. You should just check. I just don't assume because it's 200 or 300 level that you can't take it. If you're interested in it, contact the professor. The other thing I would add is that if you find that you're having trouble with the reading load or you're struggling with the writing, in addition to going to the writing center, go talk to the professor, take advantage of office hours. I think that most professors really want the students to succeed. This is not a hazing process. We would rather read good papers and exams at the end of the semester, and we want to see you grow intellectually. So I'm far more impressed by a student who comes to me and says honestly, that reading was a lot for me to manage. Can you help me work through it a little bit? Than one who simply sort of checks out. And so if you try to develop as much contact as you can with your professors. That's what we're here for. And we're very available.
Okay, thank you. With another question, what are some examples of what students will do with a humanities major after they graduate?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, most humanities majors are pre-professional of some kind. And that means they go into law, that means they go into journalism. Really, you can go into almost anything. I think there's a little bit of a misconception sometimes that science majors are more prepared for the workplace than humanities majors. They're not really. You can't really get a job as a physicist or a chemist with a BA in physics or chemistry. So what do the physics and chemistry majors do? They go on for some kind of graduate study, or they go to some kind of professional study. And that's what most of the humanities majors do. I'm not saying that's the only path possible, but that's a typical path. It's also important to realize that studies repeatedly show that humanities majors out-earn a lot of vocational majors over the course of a lifetime. So the idea that if you major in the humanities, you're somehow stuck, it's really pretty much a myth. Now, it is true that the majority of our majors in the humanities are not going to do something directly relevant to what they've studied. That is, most of them are not going to become English teachers at either the high school or the college level. Those who want to and have the aptitude, we certainly encourage, but there's a lot of other options. Do you want to add to that? Anything?
Sure. Yeah, we just in the past few years in the English department, I mean, we've had students, go into business, law, medicine. I talk about the benefits of any of these of the humanities. I mean, there are some things that we're all teaching throughout the humanities. Things like critical thinking that allow you to really come up with thoughts, arguments right on your feet. In journalism, for instance, I'm teaching, how to go up and talk to strangers and be comfortable with it, how to take complicated information and distill it into stories. I mean, these are things that really go across the humanities. These are skills that, if you're a doctor, you can see somebody as a story and not as just a number or a patient. You actually can think about what led them to be in the spot that they're in and treat them a little more humanely. As a lawyer, you might be able to craft a better argument and tell a better story and boil down information into something that people understand. If you're an engineer, engineers who can write are already at the top of their field, because they're so, it's a skill that is not common among a lot of scientists and engineers. If you can write a grant and you can really have a sense of how to put things together in a compelling way, you're already up and above a lot of your peers. So that's one reason we have so many double majors. I love having engineers in my classes. They add this sort of element of different thought, So, I have English majors and biology majors and engineers. I have a little bit of everything, and it's fantastic. And the diversity of the classes also is great for the types of stories that, for instance, I'm telling. I have a class where we were talking earlier about University Circle and being able to use the area around us. That's whether that means, finding a study break and going and, studying underneath 18th century painting at the art museum, which is free and quiet and fantastic, a study space to be in, or such as I'm spending an entire class next semester, my video storytelling class. We're going to the VA center, and we'll be taking video cameras in to the prosthetics lab where they're actually making artificial limbs for veterans who are coming back from the war, and we'll be telling video stories about how they make those limbs, and we'll be interviewing the veterans in the nursing home and the guys who are just coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. We'll be spending the entire this semester there, and that's only a block away from campus. There's all these just amazing spots with fantastic stories around here, and we really try as a faculty to plunge the students into those places also.
Yeah, I want to actually build on a couple of things Jim said. One is that, when you think about what do lawyers do? Well, lawyers are people who are presented with problems, a legal problem in their case, and what do they have to do to solve they have clients, and they have to solve their client's problem. And what do they have to do? They have to do research, and they have to construct an argument. That's exactly what we teach you to do in a history major. You start with a problem, we teach you how to do the research, we tell you how to take the research you've done and construct a persuasive argument from it. So it's really, really good pre-law training. I also wanted to mention, because Jim was talking a little bit about the humanities and medicine, this is a real strength of the university. And it's close to my heart because I'm a historian of medicine. This is the main area that I teach in. And there are lots of opportunities at this university to study the social and cultural dimensions of medicine. One of the lesser known assets of University Circle is the Dietrich Museum, which is one of the world's preeminent museums of medical history, and when I do my history of medicine class, I take the students in there and they see old medical artifacts and all kinds of things. And in Jim's department as well, there are several faculty who specialize in the study of either rhetoric or literature and medicine that you can take classes with.
Also, just real quick, I would say most of our websites as well. I know the English department, I think the history department as well, and most of the other humanities departments. We have links on our sites to lists of basically current graduates, or our Facebook pages, or Twitter feeds, where you can see what some recent graduates are doing. You know, whether it's somebody who's an executive at the Gap, or somebody who is a newly published author, or someone who is at a new law firm, what have you. But a lot of we do keep track of our graduates. Our alumni come back and visit and are fantastic. So there's that linkage as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And we have another question. Is it possible to combine my interests in different areas, such as philosophy and history, without majoring in both?
Well, there's several options here. I mean, in a way, I'd like to know a little bit more about what the person asking the question wants to major in. I can tell you that there is one specifically interdisciplinary major that fits the two, but it has to do with science. That is, there's a history and philosophy of science major. Now, if your interest is in science, then that doesn't help you, but we do have that set up. There is also the possibility everyone can, at Case Western, is able, if they wish, to construct their own major in consultation with faculty and a dean. And then there are also there are a number of interdisciplinary majors. For example, there's international studies and there's ethnic studies. As far as history and philosophy goes, you know, if you're very interested in both history and philosophy, but are not majoring in either of them, one thing, you do have to have a major of some kind, whether it's interdisciplinary or whether it's something that you've generated yourself. So you do have to have a major. I wouldn't mind, though, if it's possible to get a follow-up on more about what the person has in mind, I might be able to say more.
I would just say also that you know, one option is many of our students have minors in one degree or another, and the minors are fairly they're not as intensive as you might imagine. Usually it's 5 courses, so which is 15 credits for a minor, whereas it'd be 30 credits for a major. And you know, and many departments have minors in all sorts of different areas of that department. In English, we have minors available in creative writing, in film, and we also have a concentration as well available in film. So, you can get a minor just in English. It's one reason more than anything else, such as the science and philosophy and history idea, to go and talk to somebody in the department chair. Once again, we have plenty of time for you, and we can talk to you about these options you may not have considered. And really, once we get to know you, and you'll also have an advisor for your first, as you probably heard from your welcoming guide, you know, you'll have an advisor through your first SAGES course, and they'll help steer you into the right path. But it's always best to go to the professors in that department where you think you may end up, and talk to them face to face, where we can really get a sense of who you are and where you want to be headed.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, just to follow up on the original question, sounds like the student was just interested in majoring in one of those two and just taking courses in the other, and wanted to know if it's okay just to take courses in another discipline without necessarily declaring it as the second major or even as a minor.
Absolutely. I mean, most times if the student has met the requirements for a minor, which is usually just 5 courses, they will add it as a minor, because why not? But there's no requirement that you do so. You can take as many you can take as many history courses or English courses or philosophy courses or religious studies courses as you wish.
Yeah, and a lot of students will start out as a minor. They'll say, I'm just taking 5 courses, but they end up falling in love with it, and they'll say, I'll just take another 5. So.
Happens all the time,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a question about student groups. Are there clubs for students who are interested in subjects like writing or philosophy, or for students who just like to discuss and debate ideas?
Absolutely, they're all over the place. If you look at the student groups site on the CASE website, which I hope they can send you a link to, but I'll just name a few in English, and we can just we'll just go. But in English, we have an English Honors Society for students who just want to get together and talk about their courses and have a place to meet. There's a film group. There is the newspaper. There is a literary magazine. There's a humor magazine. A little bit of, if whatever your interest is, really you can find a student group. I'm surprised continually of new ones that crop up every semester that will find you a home.
Yeah, and then sometimes these are just created by student interest. I know for several years there was a fairly active capoeira group on campus, and I haven't heard of them recently. I don't know if they're still active, but a lot of it depends on your initiative. For example, a few years ago, there was a very active the philosophy club, the students' philosophy club, was very active, and they were getting faculty to do events and have informal discussions outside of class time. So a lot of it depends on the student initiative. But we've got clubs. You want clubs? We've got clubs.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we have a question. This one's from Catherine. She says, I'm considering becoming an English major with concentration in creative writing, in parentheses, poetry track. How different are the course requirements for an English major with a concentration from that of the primary track to major in English?
One of the great things about the English major is that you basically can choose really what pathway you would like to get the major. It's really, as many of the majors are, just a sort of design your own major. There are really only 2 required courses that are literature courses, and then from then on you could have almost all your other courses could be poetry. We actually do not have an official concentration in poetry. It kind of gets complicated with the designations of what ends up on your diploma. You would still have an English major, it would be on your diploma, but you could still take almost all your courses in poetry. The same as journalism, but then if you wanted to go with film, you could do a film minor, or you could have a English major with a minor in film, or a concentration in film, or a minor in creative writing. Those are the official ones that would be on your diploma if that's what you're really looking for. And then you could also graduate with honors in English, but that's one more sort of hurdle to jump. But absolutely, if you look at the poetry courses that we offer, and I would highly recommend you do that. They're on our website. You can take them all. and Professor Goodley, especially our primary poetry professor, she will take you under her wing, as would any of the other professors that you would be specializing in, and definitely show you the way.
Okay, and she had a second question. She said, I saw the English major has only 30 required semester hours, whereas other majors I've looked at, such as chemistry or accounting, have 120 credit hours. Why is there such a difference? And I know some of that has to do with just total degree hours versus major hours, but maybe you guys could explain that.
Yeah, I think that's, when you're talking about the total number of hours is, what is the total number for? I don't know. There's a required number. If you look at it would be 30 hours of just English credits, but then there are also other university requirements that are on there, so that you end up with Michael. What is the total number?
Sorry, 120 hours. 120 hours total. Yeah.
I mean, that obviously leaves plenty of room for going out and exploring other options. You have your SAGES requirements, you have your breadth requirements, you have some of the other university requirements that are on there. And then you just have room to go out and broaden your mind with other classes that you're interested in. So yeah, and a lot of the sciences will have more of a strict schedule of these are the courses you take as a freshman, these are the courses you take as a sophomore. Whereas in the humanities, you do have much more of an ability to build it the way you want.
Yeah, and I mean, the one other thing, I mean, if, for example, if you're going to be a physics major, you're going to have to do a certain amount of math, and there's really nothing comparable for English or history. I mean, certainly we encourage you to take take other courses in cognate areas of the humanities, but there's nothing required.
Right. I mean, if you want to take a foreign language, we have a fantastic foreign language and modern languages department where, that is, a very, very valuable minor to have. So if you're thinking of something like that, you can do it right in the same building. So.
Okay, a question about study abroad. When is a good time to study abroad, and how can I figure out where to go and what to study while I'm abroad? Well,
first of all, the classic time to go study abroad is junior year, and there are certain advantages to doing it junior year, but it's not necessary to do it junior year. Some people, and it's also not necessary to do study abroad for a full year. For various reasons, some people choose to go either for a full year or for a semester, and there are also a growing number of opportunities to do short study abroad trips at the university where people have been going to Denmark or Kenya or various other places, or London, for actually 10-day trips with readings before and after the trip. My colleague Ken Ledford just took 15 students to Berlin. He's a specialist, obviously, in German history. So there's a lot of flexibility, although, yeah, junior year is the typical year. As for the university is putting a lot of energy into promoting study abroad right now. We have an entire office of it's called the Internationalization Office, and there are loads of resources of people. But again, you should draw on the faculty too. If you're interested in going to Chile, talk to your Spanish professor or your Latin American history professor. If you're interested in going to India, find someone on campus, a faculty member who specializes in South Asia. It's usually possible to study virtually anywhere you want, actually, whether we're working to increase the number of formal relationships that we have with foreign universities, but if we don't have a formal relationship with a foreign university in the place you want to study, it's usually possible to work something out.
Right, and it's just a matter of finding the right person to talk to, as usual. And once again, feel free to email or walk in and just find a time. We will find time for you, absolutely. Whether it's in the International Studies Department, or the Study Abroad or group, they will find the right person for you to talk to. You can walk right in, or go through undergraduate studies. That's kind of your go-to spot. If you are looking for a place to start to find out where study abroad is. Start with undergraduate studies, and they will hook you up with the right people.
Okay, we have a question about research. Are there undergraduate research opportunities for humanities students at Case?
There are. I mean, everything from, I have some students of mine that are working in labs in the chemistry area on campus, but also in the humanities. I have more sort of internship possibilities through where I'm working now, or with my students. I have some of my students who are at Cleveland Magazine. I have a student actually that just got a job at Cleveland Magazine. Others that work at newspapers, the radio station here. But you can also work with I think it's primarily it's primarily graduate students here that are doing a lot of the research with professors. But if you get in with a professor and you have a research project, you definitely can work on it. I think one of the areas that a lot of our students end up doing a lot of their kind of most of their research is their last year through their capstone project, which is basically, at least in the English department and in many of the other departments, it's a project where you basically spend an entire semester doing something you really care about. And it's not something that is a just research paper that you're going to put in a shelf somewhere and never look at again. It's something that you really care about, the professor really cares about. You're actually making an impact that you can show to the campus, and some of these research projects are just absolutely amazing. They're, some of them are really intense research papers. I've also had students make 15 to 30-minute documentaries or magazine stories. We had a graphic novel that somebody created last year. All kinds of that sort of research is open to you.
Yeah, and we feel in the history department that you really don't know anything about the field if you haven't done original research. I mean, otherwise you're just really accumulating knowledge that other people have produced, and we see undergraduates not as consumers of knowledge but as producers of knowledge. And the history senior year capstone actually requires a research paper. There are a number of opportunities. The Western Reserve Historical Society allows you to study local history if that's something that interests you. As I mentioned before, there's the Dittrich, which has, specializes in medical history, and it has an archive. And so, we can help direct you to archives like that. I had a student a couple of years ago who did a completely original senior project, which she actually used not just for her senior capstone, but she was IGS, meaning Integrated Graduate Studies, where she picked up a master's degree along with her BA, and she did a study of the history of a contraception device, and we had sources right here at the university that she could use for that.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing things is just this area, once again with the not just with the art museum and the historical society, the VA, but the hospitals here. There's so many possibilities with. I'm working with some of my students are working with the hospital, not just doing stories, but also writing stories for their newsletter. I've had nursing students that come over and add that. Once again, that's something we haven't talked too much about, but because the campus is so diverse in what all the different students are taking, you do meet students from all around campus in your classes, in these small classes, because very rarely are these classes a professor lecturing at you for 50 minutes. The vast majority of them are really getting into discussion-based, trying to really think things through, talking about these books or stories, or really getting to know not each other, not only the professor's thoughts on something, but fleshing out exactly what it is that we have to learn.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we'll pause for some final thoughts. But there's actually two questions I'm going to try to combine into one for our last one. So. Do professors offer seminars that students can attend? I think the student's talking about like non-enrollment seminars. And another question, how can I approach faculty and make connections in my first year?
Okay, can I? Yeah, first of all, one thing I don't think enough students realize is how much we want to see you. It's very easy to make connections. Just walk in and knock on people's door, and you wouldn't be surprised how excited most of the faculty are to see you there and to talk with you. That's what we want to see. And I won't mention it by name, but there is another university, and this is a story where a student and his family had just been at this other rival bad university. No, it's very good. But they had just been there, and they really they were very open with me that they felt that at this rival university that the faculty just didn't seem very interested in them. They were very preoccupied with their graduate students, and the undergraduates were an afterthought. It's not like that here. We want to see you. If you walk into the building, Jim works in Guilford House, where the Department of Modern Languages and the English department is. I work in the Mather House, where the History Department, the Classics Department, the Art History Department, and the Political Science Department all are. If you walk in, if there's a door open, walk in. Or knock. Knock. But if the door isn't open, the office hours are going to be listed. Just write it down or take notes on your phone. When is this professor going to be here? And come in. Or email for an appointment. As far as, I'm not really sure what the question about extra seminars is, but I would say that it's usually pretty easy to arrange independent studies with faculty. If you've got a subject area that you want to cover that isn't in the syllabus, isn't in the roster, you can usually arrange to have an independent study. And I've done independent studies where 2-3 undergraduates were all interested in the same thing, and so we did this too. Sort of added this to the curriculum. One other thing I wanted to say, which is somewhat relevant, and I wanted to just make sure to say this before we wrap up, is that speaking for myself, I don't care really who you are listening to this right now, whether you're interested in history or not, or interested in some other area, but you can write to me. My email is easy to find. You just go to the History Department website. I'm the department chair, so that's easy to remember if you forget my name. And just click on the link, send me an email, any questions, and come see me in August when you're getting to school. I enjoy being with students, so I'm accessible.
And that goes for the vast majority of all the professors I've met. Like I said in the beginning, I was also new and nervous here 4 years ago, and I've made tons of friends, and I will go and knock on doors as well. And even if it's you're out of office hours, you can knock on the door and just introduce yourself. It's honestly, we are here for you. We really are. So just come on in, and we're very happy to meet with almost anybody, almost any time.
And if you have an interest and you're not sure who teaches in that area, there's several options. One is to talk to your advisor, who would normally be I believe your SAGES first year seminar teacher in the first year. So, and if that person doesn't know, go to the department chair. I have people coming into my office all the time saying, who does China? I'm interested in Chinese history, and then I introduce them to the person, and that's easy. So try not to be shy.
I thought of something for the seminar part of the question as well. There are, if you look at the Baker Nord Center, you can find different faculty members will be giving talks on works in progress. Like, I was talking about my class at the nursing home, where I bring the entire class over to the nursing home, and how I'm trying to integrate students with military families around here. Other English professors have talked about poetry work that they're working on, and just vast majority of professors in the humanities will give these talks, and everybody's welcome to come in and very encouraged. The only other thing I can think about is as far as kind of getting a test of seeing where the professors are. Most professors don't mind if you want to drop in on a class or two, especially at the beginning of the semester. You really should test drive these classes. Feel free to drop in. And if you do feel like your schedule is just totally overloaded, you can do, and I'm not sure how encouraged it is, but you can also do what's called auditing a course. I had a medical student this year who didn't take my class for credit, but she was there for every class, and she did all the work. She just didn't want to have to worry about the grades, so she just audited the class. So she came up, she was part of the class, she was part of our discussions, and she was, a part of our class. So you can do that as an auditor if you make the commitment and the professor's willing to allow you in.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for this evening. So I want to say thank you to Professor Sadowsky, Professor Sheeler for providing all this great information tonight. And thanks to everybody who watched. If you didn't get your question answered, we will follow up with you individually shortly. And please note that we'll have several sessions coming up in the next few days, with tomorrow being the fine arts, and Thursday being social sciences, Friday being the biological sciences. So definitely make sure to tune in then, and also check our archives on our website. Thanks and have a great evening.